It's time to banish the depressing image of an empty nester parent sitting alone in the family home, mourning after the kids. Psychologist and author of Navigating the Empty Nest, Robyn Vickers-Willis, knows all about it and is here to tell us more. Hi, Robyn. Now, you're not just a psychologist, you're a mum as well, so tell us about your process of going through the empty nesting transition.
Well, it actually started a year before I sold my home. And I suppose underneath I was anticipating that that was going to happen soon. And how it first presented to me, and mind you, I'd been a psychologist since my mid-20s and I'd specialised in the area of transition. But I actually had this desire for my 3 babies, and at this time they were 22, 20 and 24, back on my lap.
Wow.
And I just had this yearning to have them there. And I thought, what's going on here? And I did a bit of processing, I journal and things like that, and I realised it was this whole thing around anticipating that within the next year or 2 I'd be selling my family home. So I then went out and looked for some literature to help me, and I have to put in here, my mother died when I was 17, so I hadn't been through this transition the other end, and I didn't find anything, so I just kept on journaling about it, and I'd already had a couple of books published, so in the end I discovered I'd written so much. And I'd interviewed people, and like I'd discovered women, when they had these strong feelings like I did, because of this term, the empty nest syndrome, they thought there was something wrong with them.
Well, it has quite a depressing connotations, Robyn, does it? But it doesn't have to be that way,
Well,
does
it does, but in many ways it doesn't, especially for women.
Well, Robyn, I've told my daughters they're just not ever allowed to move out. Marcella Odette, so that's a good way to handle it. That's healthy.
Well, I think what actually happens, though, because we change and we grow during adulthood, and, you know, it's so intense, and what I had to work out was I'd spent 25 years as a hands-on mum, although I'd also had a career as well, and this had been the most intensive time in my life. But the other thing for women, I'd learnt this through my previous writing on midlife development, is that we yearn at midlife to bring into our life what we haven't had time for in the first half of life.
Yeah.
So when women get to, say, their mid to late 40s, early 50s, they're often yearning for space. So as well as grieving this letting go, I also knew underneath, and this was the paradox, I was really looking forward to more time for me. Not that I hadn't given myself time, but not running a big family home.
Do you think, Robyn, part of that is guilt? I'm guilty that I'm looking forward to this. I'm guilty that I'll get my own space.
Well, I think we are.
Guilt that you regret not doing more when they were there.
When they were younger.
Well, all of that is part of being a parent, as we know. But at the same time, as well as feeling my feelings, I knew an important part was for me to celebrate all that I had created in these 25 years.
Are we talking cruises and overseas holidays and courses and spending all my inheritance, I mean their inheritance?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's really good to nurture yourself and to think about what will bring good things into your life. But the other part of this, and this is what I'd written about previously, is we need to look within ourselves. We need to unpack a lot of what's going on inside, because what I realised in the end was this was encouraging me to recreate my relationship with my children. They're actually adults, and they're now 28, 13, 32, and I have an adult-to-adult relationship with them. I am their mother, but I'm not their hands-on mother. And this is what I unpacked. What does this actually mean?
I think this is really important, Ron, because you see so many, I still see women in their 60s that default even then to sort of going, oh, thanks for thinking of mummy, or mummy's doing this, to 30, 40-year-old adults. And they haven't made that important shift of saying, as you said, I'm not the hands-on active mum anymore. I've got to let my kids go, they're independent adults.
Well, that's right, and that contaminates the relationship. And my research showed that, in fact, I think fathers hold on more.
Right.
Because women are used to going through all these changes with their children. We send them off to kinder, to school, and that. And also because women are yearning for space, they do have something else that's kicking in. For a lot of men, because of their conditioning, they've neglected relationships often in the first half of life because they've been conditioned to just get on and provide.
Breadwinning.
And around about, that's right, around about their 40s, mid-40s, they start yearning for stronger connection with people. And it's just as children are starting to move into mid-late adolescence and move on. And so I think what happens in our culture because fathers define themselves as a father through providing, they hold on by wanting to keep on providing. So they're still providing for their 30-year-olds, which of course can be okay, but unless it's in balance, it contaminates the relationship.
What about the relationship with the partner? The children are out of the way, and for the first time in 20, 30 years, you're looking at one another.
That's right, and so it's very confronting.
Before we go, because we're going to run out of time, can we go through, you've written a book on this, can we go through some of your tips of navigating the empty nest? So your first one is actually feel your feelings.
Well, you've got to actually feel your feelings and acknowledge them and know they're okay, and then unpack where they're coming from. Then the next thing is to celebrate, you know, all that you've created in that time, and there are lots of different ways of doing that. And
that you've created independent adults that want to go out into the world.
Exactly. And I find to get a piece of paper and some crayons and a glass of wine and just do some drawing or writing or something creative to acknowledge what you've done.
Go on a cruise. I saw that was
well,
next.
If you want to. I haven't done that yet. The next one is to nurture yourself. A lot of baby boomers, which is the generation I've perhaps written for, weren't necessarily nurtured when they were young. And this is a time to actually nurture yourself. The other thing is a lot of fear comes up about your children and about yourself and your own life. You've got to face those fears.
I think control comes up for a lot of mothers. They've lost control.
Well, that's right, but yes, but I think we need to focus on fathers as well. And the other thing is to be creative about how you connect with your children and about how you live your life.
It's a really positive message in that book. Please thank Robyn Vickers-Willis. And good news for everyone in our audience today. You all get a copy of Robyn's book, Navigating the Empty Nest, to take home. That my kids are only little, but I did find a lot of really good information in there, and I think everyone should have a look at it.
It's actually from about early adolescence on, really.
Yeah. News is next here on The Circle, and we're going to check in with Liz Ellis at the 2012 F1 Qantas